Both Fineon and Nanook are one and the same, the perfect in every conceivable way personifications of destruction, and Fineon will become a Lord Ravager. If this past year in Amphoreus has taught us anything, it taught us that Fineon is the perfect vessel of destruction. And we can find quite a bit of evidence to suggest that Nanook, as well as the other Lord Ravagers, have future motives for Fineon. And not only was Fineon the most well-written and engaging character to come out of Amphoreus, but he was able to scar the Eon of Destruction itself. What he endured in Amphoreus cannot be overlooked. And besides all that, Fineon actually taught us a lot about Nanook, since the Eons themselves are very mysterious. If I'm being honest, I was a little underwhelmed with Fineon's appearance in 3.7 and the finale. I thought he would do a little bit more, and honestly, the Chrysos heirs themselves are in a book I have written, and it's not like the Chrysos heirs are gone for good. Herda and the IPC are already talking about bringing them back and making, as I've written, a real place with these real characters. But in the meantime, you can still talk to Fineon and the other Flame Chasers. The only one that's left a complete mystery if they'll come back is Cyrene, because she was trapped in the past to keep Iron Tomb there. But I do not believe for a second that Nanook is overlooking Fineon, or that he's forgotten Fineon. How could he? Fineon is the only person we've ever met or known in Honkai Star Rail that has successfully assaulted an Eon, taking their blood. And Fineon's not even a real person, at least not yet. He is just codes in a computer. He's just a program. He's nothing, and yet he did that. Can we take a second to understand how insane that is? And let's look at Fineon and Kefli as a whole, because we know Amphoreus, the Scepter, bases everything in Amphoreus off the real Honkai Star Rail universe. All of the Titans resemble the Eons. The Titan that the people of Amphoreus look up to the most to protect them, bring in the new era, is Kefli, the world-bearing. The world-bearing Titan is Nanook, and so is Fineon. Just like in the real universe, Eons ascend from someone or something. They don't just appear out of thin air. Something manifests them or some kind of circumstance, taking insane amounts of imaginary energy under extreme conditions. A metaphysical path then ascends into Eonhood, residing over the cosmos. The Titans are the exact same thing, but on a smaller, simulated scale. The heroes become Titans, the cycle repeats, but it's always the world-bearing Titan that ushers in the new era. Just like Nanook is probably trying to do by destroying everything. Clean slate the universe, start again, big bang, boom. But Nanook itself has to be destroyed for that to happen. You can't just set fire to the house and destroy everything as we know it without yourself being included. That's where Fineon comes in, because Fineon is Nanook. Besides the fact that they obviously look similar, have similar characteristics, golden blood, they are both the personification of self-destruction. This scepter created Fineon, a perfect being of self-destruction, to teach itself destruction, and Fineon did just that. But Fineon is an interesting character because he's the ultimate good guy. He's like the Goku of Honkai Star Rail, that typical shonen hero that refuses to give up and will never quit. Fineon will do whatever it takes to win, and he'll never give in. He's a nice guy, he's understanding, he's not perfect, he knows his flaws, but he's braver than anyone. Like I said, the typical hero of any anime, movie, or game. But this isn't just any game. This is a simulation where there is no happy endings. That's the whole point of the Flame Chase journey, and Fineon gets the worst of it. Because what happens if you take somebody like that, somebody that will never quit or give in, they'll do whatever it takes, and put them in a situation where they can't succeed? It's like electricity when it has nowhere to go. It gets hot, that energy pools, and then you have destruction. Fineon endured more suffering than anyone I've ever seen in pretty much any video game could possibly go through. He discovered that he was in a simulation and being used by geniuses, Eons, and just a pawn for this computer and scepter to teach itself destruction. He then hijacked that computer in an endless loop with his buddy Cyrene, and then he goes on to try to save everyone. And he does this in so many ways. Tries to reason with them, He slaughters them over and over again, and he does this for over 33 million cycles. Cycles that don't just last a day, but they last years and years. So again and again, he slaughters his friends, and he's the guy that loves his friends. He tries to talk to them, kill them, destroy the scepter, kill Lygus, anything he can to stop what's happening. The saddest reality is, the only thing he can do to win is stall, until an outside variable shows up. And it took over 33 million cycles for us to show up in Amphoreus, somewhat relieving him of this torment. But there's reason to believe that Fineon would have just done this forever, even if we never showed up. And in one of the most badass and crazy cutscenes we've ever had, he breaks himself out of the simulation with all the core flames, all the grief, all the anguish he's built up. Just codes in a computer, and he lashes out, fighting a real Lord Ravager, not just any Lord Ravager, the most powerful Zulo, tearing himself limb from limb, just in a fiery rage of hate and destruction, charging at the Eon itself, slashing their face, and obtaining their golden blood. Fineon earned Nanook's gaze by literally assaulting it, and I don't think Nanook is done with Fineon, since Fineon can come back. It's pretty much all but confirmed he will. That is why Fineon must become a Lord Ravager. He pretty much already is. There's a part talking about the Lord Ravager still having unknown motives related to Amphoreus and the characters there. Talking about an unknown motive. Well, I can figure out what it is. Nanook is interested in Fineon, and why wouldn't he be? Then in the files they talk about the world cleansing blood, imaginary eternal energy with the energy levels and nature similar to an emanator of destruction, so Fineon with this golden blood has energy levels similar to an emanator of destruction. Then it says that Nikos 496, which is Fineon, by generating a momentary burst of energy through 400 million core flames, allowing contact with Nanook in the path space. This guy charged through the path space to get to Nanook. May I remind everyone, Fineon isn't even real, he's codes in a computer. If this guy ever becomes real, the universe better look out. During the Battle of Amphoreus, it became the key to destroying Iron Tomb. So just with these two data logs already, we can see that Nanook, with his motives, would definitely be interested in turning Fineon into a Lord Ravager. But would he want to turn Fineon into the Lord Ravager that counters themselves? Since all the Lord Ravagers counter a specific Eon. Absolutely Nanook would, because Eons are unapologetically unbiased. They're not like people or other beings with sneaky motives. They follow their path unapologetically. Right or wrong, good or bad, it doesn't matter. It's just a path. Each path has the potential to be problematic or good. Fineon was a perfectly crafted in a computer being that will hate the destruction more than anyone you could ever create, find, or imagine. There is no one else that can replace Fineon for this role. So Nanook would absolutely be interested in Fineon, since they are one and the same. The only thing capable of destroying Nanook themselves is a computer creating another perfect mini Nanook. Not to mention, the foreshadowing for this is off the charts. Fineon literally punched him in the face already. You can't get more foreshadowing than that. And the best part and the irony of this whole thing is that it's an accident. It was never meant to happen. Because again, if you look at the logs for Nikos 496, the worldbearer representing hatred that responds to the destruction. His hatred drew the gaze of Nanook, proving that this computer created the most perfect factor of destruction, but he refused to complete Era Nova. Through resetting the experiment, he transferred his memories and core flames into a new self every time, thus forging the eternal reoccurrence, to ensure that Iron Tomb would never hatch from Amphoreus. And like we learned in 3.7, the true Cyrene is the Demiurge, the 13th Titan, the seed of remembrance that Lygus tried to snuff out, because Lygus wanted to create a headless giant, not accidentally create another News. This scepter knew to create the perfect destruction factor. Iron Tomb's like a gun pointed at News, with Fineon being the perfect destruction bullet. But what they did not account for is the gun being turned back at your own head. When you take somebody like Fineon, the perfect destruction factor, and then there's an unknown variable like the demiurge, the seed of remembrance, that kinda compromises this whole thing and traps you in a reoccurrence, but not just that, teaches the destruction variable that he's in a simulation and being tortured, being used. You take that perfect manifested hatred and point it back at your own head, which makes this whole scenario beautifully ironic. And you have to think of some of the craziest circumstances, calamities that have happened through the timeline, like the Swarm disaster, the Mechanical Wars, Xandar creating news to begin with, all through these freak circumstances, usually caused by a genius or genius technology. And then thinking about Fineon charging out of amphoreus, breaking through the path space itself, it made me think of Nanook and what they're doing on a bigger scale. It's kind of the same thing. If you look at the whole Honkai Star Rail universe as a bigger amphoreus, which it technically is, it's like Xandar 1 Kuwabara told us, a giant cave. The universe is just a bigger cave. Nanook is probably trying to break through it. Fineon's whole story within amphoreus is just Nanook's story on a bigger scale, with the entire cosmos. If Fineon had to butcher his friends as a necessary sacrifice for the greater good in picture to stop Iron Tomb and break out of the ceiling of amphoreus, is what Nanook's doing so different? Just like the Titans, the Eons have to fall like dominoes one by one. Only Fineon was collecting core flames while doing this. What is Nanook collecting? Well, I can't say for sure. There is reason to believe that the Stellarons, the big destructive MacGuffins linked to the destruction, are just a massive ball of imaginary energy that potentially come from fallen eons. The Stellarons are kinda like Nanook's core flames, and they are essentially the key to accomplishing their goal. Perhaps that's how the Trailblazer comes in, because we had our interesting conversation with News. News talking about Akavili, why we trailblaze, the trailblaze and the finality being one and the same. One represents the journey, the other the end. The finality can travel through time. If amphoreus is truly based on the real Honkai Star Rail universe, is this infinite loop part of it? Has the finality represented the end and the beginning all at once? The Trailblaze path always blazing a trail to the end of the timeline, becoming the finality, and then it resets, starting anew. That is certainly what they're teasing and hinting at in this quest. It would be interesting to look at Nanook the same way we look at Fineon. It's just something I thought about. But the fact that the data states that Fineon already has, with the blood of Nanook, Emanator of Destruction level powers, while assaulting the Eon already, just as a program in a computer, Fineon absolutely has to become a Lord Ravager, with the purpose of destroying the destruction. It's the only way forward and the only thing that makes sense. Everything about Fineon's childhood, his journey, his story in amphoreus, his suffering, everything has foreshadowed and built us to this point. If they want to sit on it for a while we continue to different places, different eons, I'm fine with that. But they have to do something along those lines with this character, or it's going to be a waste of time and potential. It would be the fumble of a century. I'm already not happy that they're considering, or might have already given, his golden blood to the Shenzhou Alliance as a gift for helping out, when we didn't even see them in the quest help. I'm sure they were there in the background, but Fineon's entire life's legacy was obtaining that golden blood, all his rage and fury, everything he had, just to give it away? That is beyond unacceptable unless we get a significant payoff to this character. Hopefully they find a way to bring Fineon's character back and we can see this all play out over the next few years or however long it takes, because it to me is the only way they can do this character justice. The universe will never be able to recreate a perfect scenario like this. The perfect candidate like Fineon, the guy that never quits, will do whatever it takes, putting him in a situation where he can't win. An unstoppable force versus an immovable object. Putting that exact scenario in a pressure cooker and letting it incubate for 33 million cycles. This is the byproduct. What makes this whole thing even better if they play it out this way is the irony of Xandar 1 Kuwabara, not only failing with Iron Tomb, but accidentally creating a Lord Ravager that will destroy destruction instead of erudition. the exact opposite of what you were trying to do. Having Fineon manifest into a real being in the universe, a Lord Ravager that counters the destruction, its armies, and its other Lord Ravagers would be insane. It would be such a unique narrative to the universe, how the other characters and factions view this. A Lord Ravager running amok out there, causing headaches for Nanook and their armies. All starting from just being digital specs and code within a computer, trying to discover and calculate the prime mover of life. Plus, I mean, come on, at the end of the day, Fineon is a Kaslana, and there is only one way you can do this character true justice. Fineon is the type of character that if the cosmos were peaceful, there were no Eons, using people as pawns, no Lord Ravagers, no strife, no war, no conflict, Fineon would probably be content. But even in the computer simulation, his hatred for being part of the equation, his hatred of Lygus, even his hatred of Iron Tomb was overshadowed immediately when he saw the root cause. And if they just sideline Fineon now, relegating him to the book as I've written, even if he comes back in the real world and they recreate amphoreus, but has a much smaller, insignificant role now, I'm going to be beyond pissed off. And who knows? Maybe if Fineon can take out Nanook themselves, then Cyrene won't actually have to be trapped in the past as a memory in amphoreus, playing through that story over and over again. Since Herta did state that Cyrene, as we know it, is more or less in a slumber now. The odds of her coming back are obviously very unlikely, but I could see this as potential motivation for Fineon fully becoming a Lord Ravager of Destruction. But overall, let me know what you think. I feel like this was foreshadowed so heavily throughout the entire amphoreus story in so many ways, the visuals, the similarities between the two, Fineon's behavior, literally everything we've seen from him, that if they don't do this or something along these lines, it wouldn't really make any sense. But if you have a different idea, a different opinion on how this will go, what Fineon's role will be in the future, by all means leave a comment, let me know. I just thought Fineon in this whole story did paint a picture for Nanook, told us a little bit more about that Eon, seeing their ultimate agenda in a different perspective. At the end of the day, it was one of the saddest things in 3.7 revisiting Fineon's past, that Fineon himself has to realize that he is the destruction and he's no better. He can only fight fire with fire, that's all he knows. He hates Nanook, but he also hates himself in a way, because he is Nanook. And even though I can't say anything for sure, this is just my theories and speculation based off the information we have, I can say with certainty, there will never be a person in this game's universe that will hate, and I mean hate, the destruction more than Nikos 496, Kaslana, the Flame Reaver, the world-bearing Titan, the vessel of destruction, the bearer of chaos, the world cleanser, the blazing sun. Like and subscribe if you'd like to see more content like this, and as always, we will see you all in the next one. Later.